Howdy! How's everybody out there in YouTube land today? Hope you got through Easter in good shape. I hope the weather's better where you are than it is here. It's snowing. Oh, mercy. I can't even remember the last time it snowed on Easter. I mean, holy smoke, are you kidding me? It's April. It's time to stop that. What we're going to do today is we're going to be painting on a clapboard board. And in case you don't know what a clapboard board, it's an old board off the side of a house. And you could see where, this had all kinds of paint and stuff on it. And I'm not really worried too much about the paint that's on the back of it. I'll scrape some of that off when it comes time to put the hanger on it and use a sawtooth hanger on the back of it after it's all done. And I don't want that stuck to the paint, which will flake off. I want it stuck to the board. So I'll take a putty knife and scrape a little of that off of there so that my hanger will fit nice and flat to the board. This has been on an old house, and hard telling how many years old this thing is. I'm sure it's over 100 years old, and we're giving it new life. Somebody tore down an old house and cut up some clapboard boards, and I happened to score some of them. So I'm putting stencils on them. I've got a stencil all taped down here to this board already. And unfortunately, I can't get my camera high enough to get the whole thing in here, but try to give you a pretty good view of painting this up and show you how this is done. You've probably seen me doing stenciling before, but if you're new here, well, this will teach you how to do it. But you get these plastic stencils, and you can order them a lot of different places. This particular one says, "Life is better in the garden." And it's real pretty script on here. I thought this would look real nice on this board. I have done nothing to the board. There is nothing sanded. There is nothing to prep it with. There's no stain. This is just the natural wood board on here. And the idea behind stenciling to get your good crisp letters is that you have to go in with a dry brush on this. You say, well, how do you get paint on it if it's a dry brush? Well, you just watch, because you're going to be really amazed here at how this works. We'll put a little paper towel down here. I'll try to angle this a little bit more so you get to see the board and the paper towel, how I'm working on this. But we take a stenciling brush. This is what a stencil brush looks like. It's flat on the end, okay? It should be in pretty good shape. This one I've used quite a bit, but it's still in real good shape. Shouldn't have a bunch of fuzzies on it, and shouldn't have hairs falling out of it. It's kind of rub on it a little bit, see if any hairs fall out, and this is good and tight. Because if hairs fall out, they'll fall out on your lettering, and that'll mess it up. So you don't want that. When you put your stencil down, you put it good and flat to the board. You want to make sure that there's no air pockets in that it's good and flat down on the wood. If there's any puckering in it, if it's got any like little, little lips in it or anything, that's going to mess up your lettering. So you want it down good and flat, and that's why I've taped this to the board. I don't want it moving around. I want it good and flat. Now, you take your brush and you take your paint. This is just regular Burr house paint, or Behr, however you want to pronounce it. It's B-E-H-R, interior house paint. It's acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is acrylic paint is acrylic paint. I get my interior paint like this at Home Depot when they have a sale. And they give you 8-ounce jar of this interior paint for like $1.68 for 8 ounces of it. That is cheap for your painting needs. So you might want to keep an eye out at Home Depot for their sales. And you purchase it online. All right. So go to homedepot.com and check that out. Now, what you do is you just take your brush and you just touch it to the paint, just enough to get a little paint on the end of your brush. And I even kind of wipe it off there on the edge of the lip a little bit and show you there. Say there's some paint on the tips of the bristles of the brush, and not even covering all of them. It's just like that. And then you tap it up and down on your paper towel until you're barely getting any paint off of that brush. That's what you call a dry brush right there. I'll turn this up so you can see it's a dry brush. All right. Now, so that you can see how this works, let me see how this is acclimated to my camera. I may need to scoot it down, move a couple things here on the desk. But right here's where it starts. So I start tapping up and down on my stencil. You do not swoosh it around on the stencil. You do not try to push it in. You just tap it up and down. You're not trying to hammer it. You're just tapping it. Wherever there's an opening in that stencil, that's what you're shooting for. Now, the first time you tap it in there, it may not be very dark on the wood because this particular wood is not new wood. This is old wood, so it's going to be thirsty. It's going to want to drink. So we're going to tap the brush in just there on the paint again. Let's see, I got a little paint on the brush. And then we're going to tap it off on this paper towel again. And you're saying, well, Brenda, why are you taking all that paint off? Because if you put too much paint on the stencil, it's going to leach underneath the stencil. And that's what's going to make your letters all fuzzy and gommed up. That's not what you're after. You want them nice and crisp. So you go after it with a dry brush. And you can see there on the stencil, there's plenty of paint up in there. See how it's painting the stencil real good. All right. Now, that's the second coat on that word. I'm probably going to have to come back and put a third coat on there. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to keep going on down my stencil and working and give that a shot at drying. But you see how pretty that lettering is? That's a pretty stencil. I think that's a sign that you'd be proud to hang there next to your garden on your patio. You could hang these outside if you wanted to, you know, hang it on a fence or something. Because after I get it all stenciled, then I will shoot it with a shot of triple thick Krylon to seal it. So it could be hung outside. However, I prefer to hang these under roof so that they're not going to get wet or snowed on or, you know, blowed around or messed up. Try to keep them looking as pretty as you can for as long as you can. But you could hang them outside if you wanted to, as long as it's sealed up good. It'll protect your paint a little bit longer, protect your wood, keep it from rotting. You could Thompson's water seal them if you wanted to. But you have to do that every year, you know, if you do the Thompson's water seal to keep it sealed. You can't just put it on once and expect it's going to be that way forever. You see places that doesn't look like that took paint, and you just tap right back over them again. So in this particular stencil, there's these real fine lines like you see up here in the scrolly work of this bee, and sometimes it takes a little extra tapping to get into those. There's all different kinds of lettering on these stencils. You know, some of them will have great big open spaces on them, and some of them don't. Some of them have these little fine spaces. And so you just have to work with what you've got, whatever kind of stencil it is you have. But no matter which kind you got to just tap. Do not swish them and swirl them and try to do any kind of fancy thing with it. It's the same procedure. Tap up and down. You have to go over them several times, sometimes that way, but it makes your lettering crisp. I think you'll be impressed when I pull this stencil off of here to see how pretty this is. Once in a while, you'll have to dip your brush again. And tap it up and down. And my paper towel there is getting a little saturated with paint, so I'm going to fold this over a little bit. Come at it in another dry side. All right. And see, there's still plenty of paint in that brush, even though it wasn't coming off on the paper towel much. But I like this. It kind of mixes the primitiveness of the wood with the currentness of the stenciling. It gives old wood new life. Where, you know, these at one time somebody would have just grabbed these up and thrown them in the fire pit, you know. And I'm sure there was probably some of them that come off that house that was not worth saving. Maybe the weather got to them or bugs or something, and some of them probably did end up in the fire pile. But some of them was nice enough to be able to do something else with. Give them some new life. I thought this garden sign would be a nice project for today, even though it's snowing here, because eventually it's going to be spring. It comes every year. You can't set your watch by it, but you know it's coming. By May the 15th, I like to try to have my garden in the ground. And so we're talking about roughly 6 weeks here. The thing should be springing up and looking good. And for some reason, my computer's going cattywampus on me over here, so let's fix that. Okay, so now it looks like it's stenciled, right? Tapping in back over all the lettering, just giving it a good once over here. Not spending a lot of time on any of it, just hitting the whole thing one more time, just to make sure we got it tapped in. All right. I'm going to lay my brush aside and put the lid back on my paint here. Then I'm going to take this stencil off and show you what we got. Yep. Come on, lid. There we go. Now, get a hold of your tape on both sides. I have to go under this edge here a little bit to pull it loose. There we go. We're just going to take it off in one strip, just like that. Just like that. And there it is. Life is better in the garden. Stenciled on that old wood clapboard. And I'm going to take my tape off of my stencil. I do not clean my stencils. I've had people ask me that before. No, I do not clean them. There's the stencil there, and I'm taking the tape off. But as far as the paint is concerned, I don't take the paint off. Paint's not going to hurt anything. When you go to use the stencil again, you just want to make sure that all of the openings in it are clear, that there is no paint clogging anything up there. No paint, no dirt, anything in it. And then you just set it back on, you know, whatever wood you're going to put it on, tape it down good and flat, and it's good to go. But what I do when I pull these off and get the tape off of them, I set them aside up on my desk and give them, oh, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes for the paint to dry before I go flinging them around, because I don't want to get paint on the other stencils or on anything else. Just let it sit up there and dry. And to store them, I take my stencils and I have these little clothespins, and I tack them to a clothes hanger, or coat hanger, and put them in the closet and just hang them up. And that's the best way to store them. They don't get tangled up in things that way, and they're right there where you can grab onto them when you need them. So that's a little lesson on stenciling. I hope you enjoyed this today. And with all that being said, just check out all my URLs in the description of the video. My other channel URLs in there where I tell stories and stuff. And a lot of people are amused by that. I've got Instagram, I've got Twitter. I do a Twitch show at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Of course, I do my live show here on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday evenings. And I have a Patreon channel. I have an Etsy store with lots of nice crafts in it, just like these clapboard boards and different signs and things that I've made. There's my artwork, my jewelry. I make dream catchers and my homemade soap. There's the fragrance oils, all kinds of cool stuff on there. So there's lots of things to shop for there in the Etsy store. And if you would like to donate to the channel, my URL for the PayPal link is there in the description of the video as well. So all kinds of ways you can get in touch with me if you need to get in touch with me. With all that being said, there's only one thing left to say, and that's Brenda's crafty. Be like Brenda.